And this is the first time I knocked somebody out without even standing. And that's also where I learned that you're not supposed to hit people with your elbows really, really hard on top of the dome. Went back to Ireland after that whole day, and then I moved country for this woman. And after 3 weeks, we broke up. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the What a Shit Show podcast. I am your host, and we're gonna get into a few things today. First things first, I'm gonna order some coffee because I am feeling a little bit tired. It's 10:24 p.m. here in Saigon, Vietnam. And okay, the coffee is on the way. So, yeah. In the last podcast, I talked some shit about meditation, how it doesn't work, actually makes you more angry. And today, I'm wearing a meditation t-shirt, but that's not because I am a hypocrite. It's because my approach is paradoxical. So, that's why. And the first thing I want to talk about is that want to talk about fighting. I want to talk about street fights specifically. I have some Jimi Hendrix playing in the back. You cannot hear because it's a boom mic. So I want to talk about street fights and how most people do not realize how dangerous fighting is on concrete outside, and how you should always avoid fights at all costs, de-escalate fights at all costs. I have never woken up after I didn't hit somebody even though I could, and I've never woken up and thought to myself, damn, I wish I hit that guy. Although there is examples I heard from other people, like Aubrey Marcus, for example, said this in his podcast where he was in a club with his girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure, and some big fat guy with money slapped his girl on the ass. And Aubrey Marcus is a trained martial artist, definitely capable of kicking someone's ass for that. And he stood up and he got in the guy's face and he's like, "Oh, you're lucky I don't." And then he stopped himself, and he actually talks about how he regrets not punching the guy in the face because sometimes you don't just bump into people to learn from them. Sometimes people bump into you so that you can teach them a lesson. And if somebody slaps a girl on the ass and that's your girlfriend, like you should not let them get away with that, I think, because that's one time you're gonna wake up where you actually will regret not punching somebody, and you will regret that for the rest of your life. So that's just before we start off. That's one example of not regretting a fighting situation, but most other fights you definitely do regret. There's some funny ones, funny examples. I've been working in a bar for a year and a half here in Vietnam on the busy street, and my bar is open 24/7, which means that when all the other bars close at around 3 or 4 in the morning, all that drunk insanity heads down the road and inevitably lands on my corner bar, where we're already having a good vibe, and then somebody strolls in and starts to pick a fight. And you learn how to punch people by punching people with no gloves. Let me tell you that, because there's been things in the bar where, or there's been situations in the bar where I gave somebody like a lot of chances to shut up or leave or stop annoying people, and they're just too drunk or too high on meth. Because in Vietnam, nobody does cocaine, everybody does meth. And even though the Vietnamese, when they're selling it to you, they say it's cocaine, it's not cocaine, it's actually methamphetamine. And I know it's methamphetamine because one of my Polish friends, this guy who lives in Thailand, he came over here for a visa run with his girl, and he got some of that shit from like a local drug dealer, one of these Grab drivers, because there's a lot of these. It's like taxi drivers that just sell shit on the streets, and he got some of that shit from there. And here's our coffee. Okay, let's go. Thank you, bro. How are you, man? You good? Okay, you can go now. I'm busy. I'm doing a podcast. I'll see you later. Yeah. Bye bye. Right. What was I talking about now? Can you get out of the frame? Here we go. Right. So this guy got a bag of what he thought was cocaine, and then actually he came back to his hotel and he took too much of that stuff, and he ended up in the hospital. And the reason we found out it wasn't coke, even though I already knew that, was because they tested his blood and all that was in there was methamphetamine. He's taking a picture of me. Mm. Yeah. Stop taking the picture. I'm gonna show them what you wrote on the board. Me and my girlfriend have this game now that every time I mess up or do something good, she like writes it on the board, and maybe if she misbehaves, I'm gonna publicly humiliate her by showing everybody the things that she she writes on the wall. So that's about that. So yeah, don't if you go to Vietnam, watch out, because instead of cocaine, you're gonna get methamphetamine. And here's the thing about methamphetamine: like when you're on cocaine and you see police, you run away from the police. When you're on methamphetamine and you see police, you run towards the police. They could literally try to shoot you down, and you'll just stand there, unfazed, as they like to say. Um, yeah, so that's that one. And I was talking about the guy that I did not regret hitting him at all, but I did regret it a bit because I did break my hand. Come on, no, we're not doing this. Go away, bro. How dare you interrupt my private space? She's writing things on the board. Here we go. Right, so this guy was misbehaving. I gave him many chances, and then I gave him the last chance because this actually the one thing that you have to do as a peacekeeper is you have to give people the last chance. You can't just um, randomly walk up to them if you haven't said anything and do something about it. There's actually a story that I'm going to go into later because if I just remember, but I made a point in the last podcast not to go too off tangent. So I punched the guy and I punched him wrong and I break my hand and I knew instantly that I did something because I ran to the icebox and I put my hand in the icebox. I hit him and he stumbled away, but I didn't knock him out. And I was kind of angry at myself that I didn't knock him out, that he didn't fall to the ground. But then later I thought to myself, Jesus, actually, it's probably a good thing he didn't fall because I've hit him that hard and then he fell to the ground and hit his head and died. That would be tragic, and my whole life would be changed. And I'm saying this not just to sound like I have humility or whatever, but but because I had a friend actually from Ireland that died because of this shit. Because he went to a club in Galway and he got into a fight outside the club and the guy hit him one time and my mate fell to the ground and died. And he was the nicest guy ever. He was like the first guy I met when I was repeating a year in Longford, Ireland, and I went to repeat a year so I could do my exams again. And he was doing the same thing. So we're like outside the principal's office the first day, basically, registering the school and things. And he was the first guy to ever talk to me. Nicest fucking guy. His dream was actually to be a weather forecaster. Forecaster. That was his dream, and it was extremely funny at the time. He was the funniest guy ever, and he died. So yeah, you have to realize that fighting on the street is super dangerous. I actually met a guy here in the bar who was in Singapore, a Chinese guy, and he was in Singapore and he seen some guy having an argument with his girl, and he thought he was gonna be a big man and walk up to him and do something about it. And the guy supposed to be was a trained martial artist. And what happened is he walked up to him and tried to, say some shit. And he got a kick with a shin straight to his front teeth. And the whole reason why he was in Vietnam was actually to fix his front teeth. So yeah, that's another lesson there. So yeah. By the way, the reason I broke my hand on the first guy was because that was like the first time I actually ever punched someone without the glove properly. Maybe not the first time. I've been in fights before that, but the first time hit somebody that hard, I literally broke a metacarpal in my fist. And what I was gonna say was the reason I broke my hand is because I did not hit him on the chin, although I did hit him right where the jaw connects to the skull. And you can definitely dislocate someone's jaw. It definitely hurt him a lot for that. He said he couldn't eat for the next 3 days. We're still friends, by the way. Hello, Ty. I hope you're watching this podcast. Crazy fucking guy, Irish guy actually, from my hometown. No hometown. He's from Kerry, but from the same country I grew up in. And the reason I broke my hand is because I hit him right on the button there. Like if you hit someone there, your hand will go through and you will spin the skull really fast, and the brain's gonna rattle and you're gonna knock them out. That's all it takes to knock someone out. Just a quick one there. But I hit him right there. That's how I broke my hand, and that actually taught me not to hit people like that. And so the next fight, I remember I was sitting in the bar and I finished work. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. My friend with one arm, hello Mike, hope you're watching this podcast. My 60-year-old friend that only has one hand was sitting with me, and as I said, drunk people stumbled into the bar around 4 a.m. and he stumbled in, and there was like a cigarette stand. This lady sells cigarettes right outside the bar, and He stumbled into the whole stand and he threw all the cigarettes on the ground and he was drunk. And we didn't do anything about that. We sat him down, we helped him out because he was really drunk. And then he actually got out of my bar, but right next door to my bar, there's no wall, so there's just another girl bar right next to my bar with these Vietnamese chicks. And he started harassing them, and the girl tried, the boss next door tried to get me to do something about it. I was like, I'm not, this is not my problem, I'm not getting into any fights. And then the guy actually left him alone for a second and he tried to steal my chair. And I was like, no, no, we're not having this. So I took the chair from his hand, from his grip, and he's like, oh, you want to fight? And I was like, no, I definitely don't want to fight. Bro, have a good night, whatever. See you later. He's like, oh no, you definitely want to fight. And I sit down, I'm sitting down with my friend just watching this guy, and he stands on the side of the road and he starts shadow boxing, just like warming up for me on the side of the road. And I'm like, oh fuck, what have I got myself into? So this guy is standing there warming up, and after he's done warming up, he like grabs the chair from the girls and he puts it in the middle of a crossroad because I'm on the corner. So he puts it like right in the middle of the crossroad, bikes and stuff going by him, and he's just sitting there like staring right at me. And then he starts doing this, and he's moving closer. And so he has to do like about 20 of these little movements on the chair. Eventually he's sitting like a meter and a half away from me, and it's just me, my mate with no arm, and a barrel that serves as a table. And eventually he sits right in front of the barrel, and then the next step is obviously to climb on top of the barrel. So he like climbs on top of the barrel, spills my mate's beer and everything, and we still don't hit him. Where I'm like, this guy's out of his mind, obviously on drugs or some shit. I'm not getting into this shit. But then he walks away a little bit, and then I'm talking to my mate, and he's like, bro, he's getting too close. Like, you're gonna have to do something about this. And I was like, fine, next time he comes over, I'm gonna fuck him up. And sure enough, he comes over, and he leans over, up, right over in like the punching range, and he's like, "Are you fit to die?" First of all, who says that? And it was like a reasonably fit guy, like close to his 40s or something like that. And he was warming up, so it looks like he knows what he's doing. And I just kind of like look at my mate, and this is the first time I knocked somebody out without even standing, because I just look over at my mate, and without making eye contact, I could locate his jaw was right there. And as he was talking to me, I just clonked his teeth, and the guy nearly falls to the ground. I stand up, obviously, and follow up. And that's also where I learned that you're not supposed to hit people with your elbows really, really hard on top of the dome. Because I remember, obviously, I fucked him up that day, and then he didn't do anything about it after he tried to stab me with a bottle. But yeah, then I think the adrenaline wore down, and he realized that he fucked up because his teeth were definitely damaged after that one. Dumbass, basically. And I realized you're not supposed to hit people with your elbow because I hit him with like a 12 to 6 elbow because I like stood up, one left, boom, knee, down, and then like 12 to 6 elbows on top of the head. And this guy was obviously there on the ground. People separated me. I just sit down. People are like giving me water as if I'm like in the corner in a UFC fight because my whole crew was like watching. Is like, oh fuck, he's starting with Arthur. Like, what the fuck's gonna happen here? And I'm sitting there chilling. And yeah, I was in the shower and I was like, my elbow hurts. You're not supposed to be hitting people with elbows. And then the next time, going back to the example where somebody slaps your girl in the ass, there was a guy, a 60-year-old guy that had more money that he could spend in a day, and he tried really hard to spend in a day. He was doing a lot of these nitrous oxide balloons because that's like a huge thing here in Vietnam. They sell these nitrous oxide balloons, especially on this street. I'm not sure about the other streets, but like it's super popular here. It seems like a less crazy drug to do if everybody's offering you like, as I said, meth, weed, and all this other shit on the street. These taxi drivers. It seems like doing a balloon that looks legal is better for you. So people sit and they will sometimes spend all their money on these balloons because it releases natural opiates in your brain, which is essentially heroin. You're doing like these balloons and you can knock yourself out and you go into hyperspace and you meet God and you decipher reality. Yeah, but more about that maybe in next episodes. But um, yeah, this guy was doing balloons and he was drinking, he was smoking weed, and he was with this girl that he was paying for, this 19-year-old, basically. He went into the bar and he said, like, how much do you make here? And she told him how much he makes here. And he's like, I'm gonna double that and I'm gonna buy you a house and you're gonna learn English and whatever else you want and you're gonna be my girlfriend. And that's like how it operates here. I'm sorry for everybody abroad to hear that, but like these things happen a lot. Like people with money come in and they want a 19-year-old girlfriend and that's just what it is. Like everybody's of age, whatever. But he was sitting with a girl, and my girl was working with me in the bar, the one that you seen there. And she bends over. the counter, and he decides in his crazy mind on balloons that it was going to be a good idea because he was an extreme kind of guy. He would like he liked the adrenaline he got from like being extreme people and stuff. And this is why I believe karma is real because the reason karma will get you eventually is because you are keep going to repeat your patterns and behaviors, and sometimes they're good patterns and sometimes they're bad patterns, and you're gonna keep repeating them in life until you find you come across somebody that you that's gonna where there are going to be consequences, where you're going to get punished from these behaviors. So that's why karma is going to get you. Eventually, you're going to come across someone who you're not supposed to come across with these. And my girl bends over, he slaps her on the ass, and I'm eating like a guava or something. And I just like spit it out and throw it in his face. I couldn't believe that he actually did it. And he's sitting on like a couch, and I come over, and this is where I figured out that the best way to hit someone is with a hammer fist. Because if you think about it, if I told you to hit this table right here, I told you to hit it as hard as you can. You wouldn't hit it like a boxer straight down. You wouldn't even use your elbow from 12 to 6. You would smash it with a hammer fist because a hammer fist is structurally magnificent. Like that's why you see a lot in the UFC fights. Like it's an absolute destroy. Like it's amazing what it can do. And so I bounced his head off the wall. So it was like that's why you have to watch out when you're doing this to people, especially like on the you see you in the UFC and it's dangerous in the UFC also, but like they're on the canvas, and even on canvas, it's horrible because you hit somebody on top of the forehead, and the back of their head is really weak, and if you hit the back of the head of something, you can knock yourself out also, and you feel that's why the shots to the back of the head are illegal. But what is legal, you can hit somebody on the face as they're on the ground, and the head can bounce off the ground. So you bounce their head off the canvas. And what happened with this guy after he slapped my girl on the ass was I go up and he's sitting on the couch and I'm holding like a balloon that I was actually aiming to give him before that because he ordered one. And I'm still holding this balloon in this hand. And then I bounce his head off my fist, off a wall, off my fist, off a wall, off my fist, off a wall. And you could see like some bleeding in the back of his head. But luckily, we were actually pretty cool after that. He came in maybe like a few hours later. I had to leave, obviously, because of rage and shit. You didn't want to kill the fucking guy because that's where you go sometimes, you know. With yeah, um, yeah. So I had to leave. Came back. Then later he was in the bar next door doing balloons, and he came in the morning and he was like, "Bro, actually, I'm so sorry. I don't know why the fuck I did that." And I found this a lot actually. I think this is why the government bases every law on violence because violence is so effective. It's the last resort, but it's super effective. And usually, this is why, like, if somebody's bullying you and you eventually stand up to them, like they stop bullying you. Like they will not. They just because it's not worth the pain, or it's not worth the you know the reward is not worth the what's the good analogy here? The cake is not worth eating, or whatever the fuck. I need to come up with better analogies. That's what I'm gonna do for the next podcast. So I'm gonna write that down. But yeah, basically, it's not worth it. So yeah, that's probably all about. What I was gonna say is that sometimes when I happen to get violent with people, I never start things. I always only go there last resort. But if somebody is disrespecting you and things like, especially men, only men, really, you know. But the last resort is violence, and usually people come back to you with a lot more respect when you got violent with them, and they know their place. And like, I wouldn't go up to a guy that was, you know, like I wouldn't go into a jiu-jitsu gym and just talk shit to the coach because he's gonna destroy me every time. Like, why would you do that, you know? And like, people don't know who you are, what you did, where you came from, like how you were raised. Like, people don't know. So like, they think they maybe were like a big fish in their small pond, and they come out to the world and they just think they can do the same kind of things that they got away in other places. And so you have to do something about these people sometimes. You know, you have to like the universe will allow you to bump into people that have to learn something from you, and you are there to provide the lesson. I believe that wholeheartedly, you know. And I'm not promoting violence. I am simply speaking my mind, and none of this should be taken as advice. This is all for your personal entertainment. Okay, so we got into street fights. After my last podcast, or during my last podcast, I asked you guys a question. By the way, Vietnamese coffee. I don't care what coffee you had this morning. Vietnamese coffee is 20 times better than your coffee. And after I get deported, the one thing I'm gonna miss is Vietnamese coffee, which is like why I'm gonna bring about 10 kilos with me. But even then, if I bring 10 kilos with me, I'm eventually gonna run out of coffee. And unless somebody from my family comes over here and brings me back more, I'm just gonna end up drinking the same coffee that I was drinking in Poland, Ireland, or Norway actually has like the worst coffee ever. I don't know what it is, and people drink it there. It's so bad. Vietnamese coffee is just so good. Oh, and it's iced coffee, so it gives you like heart palpitations and feels amazing. Yeah. So on my last podcast, I asked a question: what do you guys want me to talk about? And some of my friends have suggested I talk about fitness since I have been training for like the past must be around 12 and nearly 28. I'm 28 next month. So I started training when I was like 16, and I've obviously been doing like free running and things. But I got into the gym when I was 16 years old, and I've done a lot of things at the gym since. Because I started off with like weights, and I went back to calisthenics because it helped free running better. Like it's better, like body movements are better for doing if you're on using your body in free running, like doing being really capable and strong within your own body with calisthenics, it's gonna help you with that. So that's what I was doing. Uh, but then I got back into weights. Then I started powerlifting a little bit. I never hit any crazy numbers on powerlifts. If you guys care what I ever did, I probably will go into that in the future. But I started powerlifting. Then in college we had an Olympic lifting course, and I absolutely fell in love with Olympic weightlifting because, like in powerlifting, it's called powerlifting, but you're actually building strength. Like you're learning to move things, big heavy things, slow. So you're essentially like a truck. Whereas powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, you are picking up heavy weights and you're moving them fast. So you're learning to convert all that strength you gain from powerlifting to power, like moving things with less weight, but moving less heavy things faster. So that's what Olympic lifting weight was, and it's also really good for mobility. Like I found when because you do all you do is clean and jerk, squats, and well, a clean jerk and snatch is what you do for Olympic weightlifting, but you're squatting every day. My legs got absolutely huge. They got so big and like my quads got so big that when I started running later after that phase, like my quads used to be just constantly rubbing against each other. Like I could not leave the house without having like uh like short leggings or something on, or if I like put baby powder on my thighs so they don't rub together because you just it's just chaffing. Or is that the word? Chaffing, whatever. But yeah, your legs get absolutely huge from weightlifting, and your posture gets so good because all you do is like you lift it up to here, and then or you just throw it right from the ground over your head. And there's a lot of like you build so much stability in your scapulas and like your upper back that you're essentially bringing your shoulders like way back because bench pressing is great, but it makes your shoulders like all you make all these muscles so tight that your posture actually suffers, and you like you can even like try to reposture yourself all the time, but the muscles are so tight that doesn't matter what you do and how much you focus on bringing your shoulders back, the muscles eventually you end up in this position again, and then you end up having all these other upper back problems and things like that. Because especially when you do like boxing and jiu-jitsu, like all you do in jiu-jitsu is like elbows in, because in jiu-jitsu you have to keep your enemies close but your elbows closer is the saying, and in boxing you're also really close here. You're always like covering your chin with your shoulder and your shoulders are forward. So if you do a lot of bench pressing and jiu-jitsu and boxing and whatever other martial arts, like your shoulders are caving in, and it's good for if you're doing the sport, but it does come with some side effects and some problems down the line. Yeah, so uh I got into it. Powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting. I've been doing martial arts in between, so I was always since I was 19 I got back into jiu-jitsu and I was just doing that. So I could probably go into a lot of things about jiu-jitsu also. I'm not like an expert in jiu-jitsu, I would say, but I definitely know some things. I was lucky enough. My coach was actually Marius Damasat, which is if you know anything about jiu-jitsu and you have watched the biggest jiu-jitsu fight of all time, and you've seen Andrzej Kaval versus Gordon Ryan, the referee in that match is actually my coach. He's also from Poland, so shout out to you, Marius, if you're watching this. Um, Yeah, really, really cool guy. I was blessed actually for him to be my coach because he used to live in the same town as me, and he because he lived in the same town as me, I used to get lifts with him. So I was lucky enough to be always like the first one in the gym and the last one out. And after the whole training, he was essentially like a father figure to me at the time because my parents were not together. Um, my mom had a step boyfriend or whatever, but I never looked at him as a father figure really. And then this guy was just like a nice little father figure in my life, and he would always give me like a lot of advice, not just on the mat but off the mats. I remember one time we're supposed to go to a competition which I already signed up for, but on the morning I got up, I was like tired, and I texted him, I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna go today. And my coach, everybody who knows him, if you're watching this podcast, Marius does not care about injuries at all. And you can tell him that something hurts, and he's gonna tell you like he's gonna give you like an extended list of things that are fucked up with him. Like he has a shoulder or scapula that was completely ripped. Like this whole muscle here that holds your scapula in place was completely ripped off. You could literally see his clavicle showing up. His both knees were fucked up. His back is fucked up. His neck, everything is messed up. Like he was a total mess. Like the only reason he was like um he did the reason why he always trained is because when he didn't train, everything started hurting him. So like if you told him like, oh, my knee hurts or something, he's like, bro, I have a flu. Everything is messed, and as I said, everything is messed up, and I'm still going there. I'm still going there to fuck up the Sheridans, which was the guys that were competing against him at the level he was competing at on black belt. Yeah, and actually that was the day that I really didn't want to go, and that was the day I figured out that the days that you don't want to do something are usually the days you should do them, and the days you're actually the times that I really didn't want to go to the gym are the times that I like hit PRs at the gym. It's crazy. It's like I really didn't want to go and do that competition, and I came back with two golds. And it just shows you like it doesn't matter how you feel. This is what professionals do. And I'm not saying I'm a professional by any means, but professionals don't care how they feel because it doesn't matter how you feel. Like if you trained and you know your things, like and you have the heart to fight, then you're gonna come up on top unless somebody's better than you and have more heart in the day. But that's what happens. So okay, I guess we covered and more about fitness. Actually, after I moved from Ireland, I was about 25. I finished college in sports management and coaching, and all the gyms were closed because of the flu, as I can remember. And for 6 months, I was just doing nothing, kind of, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I actually fell in love at the time because I was in Poland on holidays, and I went to a festival, and I met the girl that I used to date when I was 8 years old, like the first love of my life. I met her in the middle of a festival, and we just kind of stood there saying nothing and just like, wow, I can't believe I can see you again. Because when I was in Poland, she moved to Spain, and then the moment I left to Ireland, she like moved back to Poland, so we like missed each other, and then we bump into each other randomly on this festival, and we connect again. And then I actually went back to Ireland after that whole day, and then I moved country for this woman. And after 3 weeks, we broke up. So, ah, so yeah, so the things you do for love, guys, is crazy. But you should totally do it because it's worth it. And I remember when I was there, before before we broke up, I had plans to go and because I couldn't go to I did go to the gym, but I couldn't go like work in with my expertise that I had and like after the degree I made and everything, I couldn't go like work in the gym. And then somebody planted an idea in my mind. Why don't you go and do special forces? And I love people like Jocko, Tim Kennedy, Goggins. Like I just love these guys. And they were like uncommon, how to be the most uncommon, the most uncommon man. I love that idea. And essentially, I wanted to be a badass. Okay, we're approaching minute 29 on the video. Let me see, because I actually did change the settings on the camera. Let me see if this is still recording. And it wasn't recording. and that sucks. Because now I'm wondering when did it stop recording? Because the camera is hot, but I actually changed the settings so that the temperature can rise higher, and it wasn't recording. But yeah, so basically, I tried out for this Special Forces unit, which is actually like the most elite unit there is. It's called GROM, for those of you that want to know. And I trained a year to get in there because there was the standard that there was three tests. There was a physical test, a psychometric test comes with the physical, and then there's a psychological test, so like a meeting with a psychologist, and then you have the psychophysical, which is like a trip to the forest where you're carrying like 20 kilos on your back and you're in there for like a week or longer, and at the very end of it, like you're put under a lot of physical and mental stress, basically. So like you would be in the forest and then you're walking for miles on these Polish mountains and things, and then they would tell you to like put your camp there, like put out your tent, and then they would let you sleep for an hour, and then they would wake you up with like flashbangs, and they would tell you to get up and keep moving. And at the very end of it, you have to walk like in a very specific amount of time, which I forgot how much time you have, but you have to walk a whole marathon with 20 kilos on your back. And I failed at the second stage, which was the psychologist, because even though I trained for a year and I got to like a very proficient level at everything, because you have to learn how to run 3 kilometers under 12 minutes. You have to, which is like mile point six in 12 minutes or something like that. You have to swim in a specific time. You have to do like at least 18 pull-ups. And if you don't know this about special forces, is in the standard is to exceed the standard. So just because you can do 18 pull-ups doesn't mean you're gonna get in. Because they're looking for a few people from that group that meet all their specifications. But if there was like 20 reps that you had to do, and some people only got 20 and other people got more, like they would actually, if you were last on the list, they would get rid of you. So you have to exceed the standard every time. So I did that, and I passed the physical, and then I passed the psychometric. And they didn't. When they don't call you, you actually have a meeting set with the psychologist. So if they don't call you, you're in. So I went for the meeting with the psychologist, and then the lady actually told me the truth, which was that up to that time, I was 25 at the time. I'm nearly 28, just 3 years ago. I was not independent enough because I've only lived with like school grants and parents. I didn't really have like a stable job. I didn't work in any place, so I wasn't like I was physically fit, but I wasn't like mentally there. And they're looking for a very specific kind of person. And also, I realized down the line that perhaps maybe I also ask too many questions. So, like, they're looking for somebody that's just going to do the job and they're going to do it well, and that's going to benefit them or improve themselves and be a better asset to the team, but also somebody that's, uh, what was I going to say? Coffee helps to remember. They're looking for somebody to follow orders. And somebody tried to tell me this before I tried to get in there. He's like, "Are you sure you're the kind of person that will go there and just do everything they told you? Because what if you don't agree with the things that they try to get you to do?" Because for those of you that don't know, GROM is a counter-terrorist movement. So like you're essentially your whole majority of your job is training, but you're also when you're doing the job, it's getting people out of rooms. You are banging into rooms, into buildings, and you are trying to, in the most sneaky way possible, get the hostages and things like that. So that's what it is. Um, and so I didn't get in. I remember when I didn't get in, and she told me I failed. I didn't tell me I failed. She told me to come back in 5 years when I grow up. Essentially, I felt this huge weight come off me, and I didn't feel bad about it at all. Later, I thought to myself, "Oh, I didn't get in. I trained for a year for this, and I didn't get in. I'm a failure, or whatever." But I very quickly got over that, and I actually started asking myself, like, most people don't do this. Like, how do you actually want your life to look like? Like, how do you want your everyday to look like? And so I done this, and then I realized that that's not the same life that I would have if I got in there. It was gonna be totally different. We were gonna go on a very untraveled path there, so it would have been interesting also. And that's another reason she actually told me that it seems like I am going there more for a sense of adventure rather than like a calling from the inside. So they're looking for somebody that's really patriotic, and I lack patriotism because I moved country when I was 12, I think, and I just never developed that like love for defending what's mine. Now I kind of look at it a little bit different. I actually kind of proud of some of the policies that Poland puts in. I'm obviously super not proud of a lot of other things, like we have the highest speeding tickets and things like that, even though we like made the least in the European Union. So there's a lot of mess in Poland, but they're also doing a lot of good things. And I have met a lot of people at the bar who actually tell me that even though what Poland did back in the day, I'm talking about immigration back in the day when there was like a war in Syria and everybody was taking in these refugees, and Poland looked really backwards because they absolutely refused to take anybody in just in case they ended up being like a criminal or something because they said human life has no value. And even if they fine us, because they fined us 1 million a day, €1 million a day, or sorry, a million euro, yeah, 1 million a day. So they were paying 365 million a year. And they said even if they told us 1 billion a day, we would have still not let anybody in because human life has no value. Because we as Polish people have been literally raped from both sides by the Russians and Germans, and we were enslaved for so long that we absolutely respect our freedom. And the point I was trying to make is that sometimes you do things that seem backwards to others, but when people go too far, you eventually look like you were thinking forward. And you see that in some places like the UK, for example, uh, it just became a total disaster after they let a lot of people in, because even though they let a lot of good people in, they let a lot of bad people in. And you didn't account for that. And there's places in the UK where you drive and the signs in the roads, the advertising is not even for the people of the UK. So you're like helping people that don't even live in your country versus like, what if you took all that money that you spend on these people and like helped your own? So there's a lot of things that there's no easy answers to, and Poland stood out by making very specific choices that nobody agreed with, and now everybody agrees with us. So it's kind of funny how that rolled out, and people actually praise the decisions that we made. Okay, so that's a bit about that. Ah, um, I wanted to talk about the whole Diddy situation, because even my girl, uh, which I thought doesn't watch all this nonsense, starts talking to me about it. Oh my God, did you hear? And I was like, you know what this is? This is just another distraction that they are rolling out. Obviously, they did something wrong. I'm not saying I don't. I'm literally I have no idea what the whole thing's about. But there's a lot of wars going on, and what they're doing is they're pumping this out, and people are pumping this out into the internet and algorithms favoring these videos because there's wars going on, and they want you to. It's just a circus. They want you to pay attention to something else. Oh, it's like don't mind this over here. Look at this. This is more interesting. Diddy and oil and whatever. So you're getting distracted again. It's like being the football. If you give people beer and a game to watch, like they're gonna forget everything. So that's what it is. And then I want to tell you about the time I lived with a schizophrenic. I'm super paranoid about whether this camera is recording now or not. Ugh, you're only paranoid until you're right, so I'm gonna check if it's recording again. And lucky it is. So I'm gonna finish with the story. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take me, but I'm gonna finish with a story about the time that I lived with a schizophrenic in Norway. So I used to live with this guy. He used to be a bouncer. He was a Polish guy. I used to live with like 8 guys in Norway. I had a room when I used to work on a building site in Norway. And I moved in, and there was this guy there that was like 120 kilo, full of testosterone, amateur boxer with like 70 fights, who was also a schizophrenic and used to go on 5-day benders on amphetamine. So it was essentially like living with Mike Tyson on meth. It was fucking crazy. The guy was completely delusional, and like I only noticed this later because I didn't know how crazy he was. But especially when he went on these benders, he was just absolutely out of his mind. And one story I actually told on my one of my open mics stand-up shows was that I have this whole thing written in like a journal because I literally thought I was gonna die that day because he was so crazy, right? And you could see everything, like you couldn't surprise him. Even when I was writing in a journal and I had a pen in my hand, when he came into the room, he was like, "Oh, what's that in your hand?" Like he could see everything. He was that paranoid. That's that fast on speed. So he kicked my door down at 2 o'clock in the morning because he thought he could hear his girlfriend, we're in Norway, and he thought he could hear his girlfriend, who lives in Poland, who supposedly has an autoimmune disorder and she can't leave the house in Poland. And he can hear her talking to me about him in my room. So he kicks my door down at 2 in the morning, thinking she's in there. And she's like, where is she? You know? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So he checks everywhere, under the bed, wardrobe, everything. And eventually he's like, I can hear you guys again. I'm gonna fucking go in. And then he leaves for 1 minute and he kicks my door again. He kicks it down again. And he done this every 2 or 3 minutes for like 4 hours. And every time he came in, he checked, but it doesn't matter that he checked that she wasn't in there because he could still hear her. Like if you don't know, schizophrenics have a really hard time about this uh, distinguishing reality from imagination. So they can literally hear and see things you cannot hear and see, and they're completely delusional in their thinking. They can see connections between things that are not connected. Even though on this podcast I like to say that everything is connected, everything affects everything else, but she was definitely not in my room. I was watching a YouTube video and he could hear something and he thought I was talking to this girl that's not even in the country and he kicked my door down. And eventually after he was so tired that she wasn't in there, he kept checking everywhere that he started looking for hidden doors in my room. He was like, where's this magic door that she randomly, every time he kicks the door down, disappears through? And there was others like, oh, I remember the same night, uh, my girl that I used to be with from Poland actually gave me like a pair of panties that were sprayed with perfume, so I don't forget her. And he found those on the ground, and he's like, "Who do these belong to, huh?" And I was like, I thought because I was also sleeping with this other girl that had the same name as his girlfriend, and so when he asked me who do these panties belong to, I said this girl's name, and he just slaps me. I see stars. I'm like, no, 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 right, wrong person. That's not who I was talking about. Oh, because this fucking guy, 120 kilos, fucking boxer, is standing in front of you, absolutely enraged after 5 days of doing speed, schizophrenic, huge guy on testosterone, you know? And I was just like, whoa. And then I realized how important size is. And that's actually why when I moved out from Norway, I improved my boxing tremendously. I had like 2 fights in amateur boxing because I just needed to improve my hands. I could do like kicks and stuff, and I used to always get better of people when we were doing both Muay Thai versus like when we started the rounds off, we would start off with just boxing, and they could actually get me because I have a fairly short reach from my height. I'm not like a um, monkey indexed person. So like if I stretch out my hands, the monkey index is or the ape index is if you stretch out your arms like this and you are longer this way than you are taller, then you have a positive ape index. So I'm actually like 2 centimeters shorter. So my reach is very small. And it's good for jiu-jitsu because you're like lower leverage, but then for you actually have to get people there. And I remember one time I was slagging the same guy, the same schizophrenic guy in the kitchen, and he tried to grab me, saying like, "Oh, show us this fucking jujitsu of yours." And he grabs me from behind. I get behind him, taken down. I end up in mount, and I thought I won. But the moment I got him into mount, I realized how important having no rules is, and that these people don't play the same game because this guy has been a bouncer for years, and he's been in a lot of street fights. And so the first thing he done when I got him into mount was he grabs me by the balls and just looks me dead in the eyes. And it was like when Mike Tyson's shouting at your man in the crowd and saying, "I'm gonna fuck you till you love me, maggot." That's how it felt. You're just absolutely harmless. You put both your hands up. You're just like, "You got me, bro. Please let go." So that's when I realized that. But there was also another story with him when me and this guy just moved into our complex and we're shooting the shit in the kitchen. I'm like cooking something, and then this guy comes in and he has I don't know if you ever worked in the building side, but there was these knives that you use to cut the foam, the insulation that you put in the walls. So he walks in with two of these, essentially two machetes that are not sharp, and he walks in just holding two machetes, and we're like, "What's up, Seba? Like, what are you doing, mate?" And he's like, "Which one of yous was it?" And he's like pointing this machete at us, and I'm like, "What are you fucking talking about?" And he's like, "I could hear you guys dissing on a track." And if I find out which one of you it was, there's gonna be trouble. And the guy that moved in moved out like a week later. I stayed there for 10 months because I'm a fucking psycho. I really didn't like. I would rather spend time with him sometimes when he was fucked up than like I hide away from him. I don't know. I was like the only guy that he could talk to that would like tell him the truth. You know, if he was like, because everybody was used to be just like nodding their head. I used to be the guy that would actually tell him like, no, bro, you fucked up here. Like that's not how it is at all. You know. That's the same guy that used to say when on the last podcast he said his girlfriend told him like how to improve his life, and he's like, well, I'm fucking supposed to start reading books and improve myself and like educate myself. I'm 30 years old. Like I'm not gonna do that shit. So just these fucking people exist, bro. I still like can't wrap my head around it. You know, it's so insane. And they don't think they're sick. They think they have magical powers. And I made it a point to one day talk about this fucker because it's just unbelievably like looking back at it, it's so funny. You know. Right, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up on this, guys. Thank you all for watching the What a Shit Show, and I hope you have some more questions for me in the comments below so I can learn what to talk about in the next episode. All right, have a beautiful day and enjoy your existence. See you later.